Hello, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about the psychological or mental health problem or disorder, which is called the narcissistic personality disorder, okay? Or often abbreviated or shortened to NPD. So, when we talk about narcissistic personality disorder, we're not talking about people who love to take selfies, who love to share photos of themselves online on social media, and who love the attention of other people from likes or comments from their posts or anything of that sort, okay? We're talking about the real and actual, okay, personality disorder that often exhibits these kinds of traits. Like, for example, wanting admiration from others, okay, that may be misinterpreted from other people who are constantly posting photos of themselves, okay. And we have to make a distinction between those kind of people and the actual people who have narcissistic personality disorder, because there is a huge distinction between the two, okay. So what is narcissistic personality disorder, or NPD? If you look at this illustration right here, if you look at this photo, it says here, I think you may have a narcissistic personality disorder. And the person with NPD says, I bet I'm the only person in the world who's got it. So that is what narcissistic personality disorder in a nutshell is, okay? But what is NPD? What is a formal definition of NPD? NPD is a mental health condition, okay? It is a mental health disorder or a mental disorder or personality disorder related to mental health, characterizing people who have low empathy, okay? Extremely low empathy, who have a sort of grandiosity or undeserved overconfidence in themselves, or a feeling of being better than everybody else. Okay? So that is what NPD is. It's a person who can be characterized as having low empathy, extremely low empathy, and a sense of grandiosity. So the statistics here shows, okay, that this serious psychological disorder affects an estimated 0.5% to 6.2% of the US population, with significantly higher rates observed in clinical settings. And this is from the recoveryvillage.com. Okay? So it says here that there is 0.5 to 6.2% of the whole US population that has this disorder or have been diagnosed with this disorder or observed with this disorder. So that is a lot of people. You really can't deny the fact that is a lot of people. If you do the math and you times that by the actual US population, and I don't really know when this statistic was published or whatsoever, but if you do the math, you will get millions of people with NPD. So the percentage of Americans with NPD may reach 16% in clinical settings, according to Blueprints Psychiatry by Michael J. Murphy et al. Okay, so we're talking about numbers. Quantitatively speaking, that is a lot of people. So you can't just disregard that. The third statistic that we have is up to 75% of people with narcissistic personality disorder are men. So if you see here, we're just basing this upon the statistics. That is a lot of people. That is a lot. The good majority of that is men, overwhelmingly. Because if you're going to take the median of any sort of statistic, we can say the 50%. 50% is the median. We have a bell curve. 50% is the median. We can take that as the average of the median. We can take that as the average of the bell curve. If we have a bell curve regarding the population, that is 25% more. That is 25% more. Okay, men as opposed to women with narcissistic personality disorder. That is not something to disregard. Okay, that is not something light to just carefully brush off your shoulder. So we need to keep these statistics in mind. So why does understanding NPD matter? Why does NPD matter in the first place? Why do we need to understand and learn about this disorder? Okay? So NPD fundamentally is a defense mechanism. NPD is a defense mechanism for people who are very insecure of themselves. Okay? And that's from my own understanding. The clinical description may be different, but that's from my own understanding. So people who have NPD typically have very low self-images, which is contradictory, right? Which is very ironic considering that somebody with NPD has a sense of grandiosity and they think a lot of themselves. They think higher of themselves as opposed to other people. And that's very contradictory. So NPD is just this very deep sort of deep rooted condition that someone has learned, okay? That someone has learned through a variety of reasons, whether it be their environment or their childhood or whatever, in order to sort of protect themselves. Okay, and insecurity is not the only reason for this, for NPD. There are a lot of variety of reasons that we can sort of pinpoint the cause of this disorder. But one of those is insecurity. So the importance of it is so that we can protect ourselves from the people who have this disorder, characterize them, and label them in order for us to be hygienic with the people who we are close with, or people who we are befriending or having relationships with whatsoever. There are a lot of reasons for why we need to understand what NPD is and why it matters, why understanding it matters. Okay? So those are one of the reasons why. Now, we're going to talk about dealing with NPD. How do we cope with having this disorder or having the tendency for some of the variables that are sort of related to NPD, sort of interconnected with the concept of NPD? So in yourself, how about in yourself? Before we talk about other people, let's first talk about yourself. From an individual scale or a micro scale, individually, how do you deal with NPD or traits that may be characterized with NPD? The first is actually finding practices. And what I mean by that is actually finding or searching for practices like the cognitive behavioral therapy or the schema therapy, anything that has to be related with the field of psychology or psychiatry that has been proven to help with the symptoms of NPD. You can approach an actual therapist if it is actually bothering you to an extent that you can't handle it anymore, okay? Or if you're curious, you can educate yourself just like you are right now. You're educating yourself with this video, which is a great first step, by the way. Thank you. So one thing is educating yourself and actually going to a therapist, a licensed professional that has expertise or knowledge about this topic, about the MPD. The second is, which you need to separate yourself from your own work or from your own accomplishments. MPD basically just thrives from having sort of a sense of admiration from other people based off the achievements that it could be achievements or status or wealth or whatever. The MPD person thrives off of those. So you need to be able to have sort of a journalizing moment. Like you need to journalize. That's one of the good practices, journalizing, You can journalize how it is or what are the thought processes that basically wander through your mind as you go through your day, day by day, in order for you to really reflect upon your disorder or your tendency for this disorder and basically improve upon it objectively, in an objective manner, in a tailored or self-personalized manner. Okay? And now we're going to be talking about how to deal with MPD and others. Okay? So people with MPD, you can't convince them. So don't even try to. If you're having an argument with someone with MPD, they will always think that they're right. They will always think that there is no flaw in their sort of reasoning, their sort of thinking with their own problems or any sort of situation that has to be included in with them. They always think that they're right. Okay? And that coincides with what characteristic is basically just interconnected or interrelated with MPD, which is a sense of grandiosity. Okay? So do not convince an MPD about their perspectives against their perspectives. Okay? Because they won't change their mind. And it is basically just draining you. It's basically just something that is too much of an energy exhauster. So you don't need to argue with people with MPD. What you do need to do, though, is to use the gray rock method. What is the gray rock method? It's basically just being as emotionally flat as possible and offering no fuel, no sort of fuel for the MPD person to use in order to be entertained by you. Because people with MPD, they love admiration. Okay? They love a sense of feeling that they're important, that they're superior to others. And they also love to see other people sort of lose with their hands, by their hands, whether it be from work, okay, work in school or whatever, or in your home, even in your home, okay. So you use the gray rock method. The second is be aware of the people who you hang out with or you surround yourself with. If you think that person that you're interacting with, or having conversations with, may have MPD, then just don't interact with them. Just cut off the relationship. You don't need to be entertaining somebody of this caliber. Because that is only fueling their desire. Okay? That is only fueling their desire to be superior to you. Or whatever motive that they may have. But MPD, okay? And people with MPD, they generally love to feel important at the expense of other people. And that is the greatest caveat that we are going to talk about, at the expense of other people. Because you can value yourself. There's nothing wrong with valuing yourself. But when it comes to the point that you value yourself at the expense of other people, that you are actually actively hurting other people or causing problems for other people in the guise of valuing yourself, then that can actually be NPD, narcissistic personality disorder. Okay? So that's how you deal with NPD in others. Okay? And hopefully you learned something in this video. And if you did, please subscribe, give me a thumbs up, comment your thoughts, okay? Or give me your honest feedback if you didn't like the video. I'll be sure to read any and each comment that you have for me, okay? So, thank you guys for listening. And tune in for another video. This is Rich Andre.